Really kicked in. We're all feeling the pinch and supermarkets are finally slashing their prices. So who better to advise us than debt buster Richard Fenton? What an introduction, eh?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. We've been featuring your money-saving tips this week on The Breakfast Show, and it's great that you're in this morning. The headline on the Daily Mail reads, "A cutthroat Christmas." Basically looking at supermarkets slashing their prices. Michelle was reading out the story a little bit earlier. Is this really good news or a good marketing ploy?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. As long as everybody goes into these things with their eyes wide open, it's a very good reaction for the consumer. We were talking about an interesting point. I think Tesco's have said they've slashed 1,000 lines across their entire range. When you look at Tesco as a whole, they've got literally hundreds of thousands of different items within their stores. And the headline there, I think, is they're slashing price on things like bicycles and some children's toys. But it could also be that they're slashing 50% off home brand baked beans as well.
Yeah.
So some of the bargains are going to be worth having for Christmas. Some of the bargains are going to be less worth looking at. But it seems to be a common theme now. Last week we had the massive sale by M&S, 20%. And now we're seeing figures of 50, 60%, I think, is John Lewis's number for one of their sales that they're going to be launching this week.
Without asking you to analyse every product and every range, but are we starting to see these prices slashed on the staple foodstuffs, the stuff that, you know, people really need in their kitchens, in their fridges, in their larders? Or is it on the more extravagant, perhaps the luxurious side to their shopping list?
It's a very good question, and the quick answer is the staples that you need, that they know you're going to buy, are probably going to maintain the prices because you need the bread, you need the milk, etc. to live. But the luxury items that we're going to be buying for presents for Christmas, that's where they need to bring the draw in. An interesting thing to remember is that most retailers buy all their stock for Christmas in spring. Well, of course, back in the spring, we didn't have the problems that we're having now, so retailers were living in buoyant times, so overstocking essentially, so now they need to offload that stock before it starts pricing itself out of the stores.
Now, talking about supermarkets, you can also get cash on these reward points as well. I think a lot of people forget that about saving money, and you think that's vital come Christmas,
Oh yeah,
it?
there's excuse me, there's two different things that you can look at. There's online discount vouchers. So if you're shopping online, you can go to discountvouchers.com. Tap in the store that you're buying from and it will give you the voucher code for that store. Just about every single person who has an outlet online has some sort of discount code that you can input.
I've got to say, I discovered this 2 weeks ago and it is absolutely fantastic. A friend of a friend said go and do it, and I buy my shopping online a lot of times just to save some time and some money. And a certain supermarket, I found a discount code and got free delivery, so saved myself a fiver.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of wonderful little deals like that that are just hidden. If you get to the end of the order process, there's always a little box for discount code. If you go onto Google, just Google it, you'll find the appropriate number, you can pop it in and get you saving.
Well, Richard, you've given us a list of topics and sort of how to break down your budget, your shopping list and save some money. We've sort of skipped through quite a few of them here, but don't make it Christmas for crooks. I think it's quite an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is something that's relevant to every Christmas. You go out and buy your presents, particularly as we're encouraging people now to buy the presents early to get the best deals possible and get prepared. A lot of people are tempted to wrap those presents and stick them under the tree ready for Christmas morning. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's just an invitation at crooks. They know that houses are now full of consumer goods that are easy pickings. If you want to wrap presents up and put them under the tree, wrap empty boxes up, put something in that's weighty, and then if the crooks do come in, they pick the boxes up, they get on, they've got a brick.
Yeah.
That's what I get every Christmas.
Yeah. And also what you're doing is warning people as well, don't like overspend at Christmas, don't put Christmas on credit, because a lot of people get carried away, you know, think they've got to buy these extravagant Christmas presents and then go and get some credit, and then, you know, you're left with New Year trying to pay all that off, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's almost keep up with the Joneses, but with your own family. You're trying to outdo each other with the nicest possible presents. And credit's obviously an easy option for some people, but in this current climate, it's really something people want to stay away from. If you have to buy on credit, if you absolutely need to do that, look for the best possible deals on the credit cards. A 0% transfer, for example, at least get your credit at the cheapest possible price. And if you can't do that, set yourself a budget for your credit. We talk about setting a budget for your Christmas presents. If you're going to buy on credit, decide how much you can afford to repay each month in the new year. and then stick to that as your budget. Otherwise, you could find yourself in trouble by February.
Richard, last Christmas we were talking about how Manchester was bucking the national trend as regards to retail sales, where other shops were kind of falling down with their meeting their budgets and their targets. Manchester was kind of soaring. Are we going to see a very similar thing this year, or are we going to get caught up in the economic downturn that has engulfed the rest of the country?
Well, I think Manchester's in a more fortunate position than most major cities. It's a very buoyant, lively city. There's a lot of things going on in and around Manchester. It will probably buck the trend, relatively speaking, but it will definitely still see a downturn. I think we're expecting figures to drop at least 7% on this time last year, which doesn't sound like a big number. When you're talking telephone numbers in terms of the money that's been spent, that's a huge drop.
I've got to pick up on something before you go, because you're actually giving us a tip to make a homemade advent calendar.
Yeah.
Do you actually do this at home, Richard?
I personally don't,
do?
but my fiancée Kate does. She saves our Christmas cards from last year, and she'll cut out the nice little pictures and make Christmas card labels, pop them onto the presents. And if you've got kids, you can make advent calendars as well.
Yeah.
The only downside there is they know where all the goodies are in the advent calendar.
Save some money, make them out of coal. Pretty.
Scrooge.
Yep.
Yeah.
I see that's fallen on deaf ears. If you've got any questions for Richard, you want to join in the conversation, if you've got any queries about how to save money, our debt buster will be sticking around on the show. And of course, we'll be featuring his money-saving ideas because he's been out on the streets of Manchester talking to the people of our fair city, finding out how they can save some cash. But finally, your website, please, Richard.
Yes, we've launched a website this last week. It's survivingthecreditcrunch.org.uk. The .org.uk is the important bit, surviving the credit crunch.
On your website, don't you suggest make money by posing as a life model? Do you do that as well in your spare time, Richard?
I don't, but again, Kate tried to test my resolve there by suggesting that she was going to do just that to raise extra funds for Christmas.
We've got some grapes up at the top. We could strategically place those later on, Richard.
Very early, ladies and gentlemen.
You probably need 2 bunches.
Very early for all that. Thanks very much, Richard. Good to see you on the show, mate.
Oh, it's good being cheeky in the morning. Anyway, coming up after the break, we've got your latest news, traffic, travel and weather, plus teletalk, and your latest sport with a very famous boxer who must be good because there isn't a mark on his face. That's at 7:45. See you in a moment.